Hi, good evening, everyone, and welcome to the live episode, the 97th episode of Let's Talk About Market. So, if we see the Nifty index, I think due to the bad global cues, it was down, but from the lower levels, it recovered, and of course, there was this RBI meet today, which was broadly a non-event. But after that, in the second half, we managed to recover and there were some important levels that it held and some interesting pattern that the Nifty index has formed, especially on the hourly chart. So let us talk about that and take it forward from there. And probably if you all have questions, I'll try to spend more time on answering your questions. Okay. So let me quickly share my screen and please let me know once you all are able to see my screen properly. Yeah. Okay. Thanks for the confirmation. So when we look at the Nifty index, so broadly, if you'll remember, I was talking about this that somewhere around this gap zone. I mean, we had this multiple resistance level over here, which after moving higher, it saw a pullback, and from there, which was earlier acting as a resistance, was supposed to act as support, and near about those levels, the Nifty index did manage to turn around from there. If you see the hourly chart, actually what happened was that it tested the 40-hour exponential average, and from there it started to turn around. Towards the end of the trading session, we have seen a bullish crossover. So ideally, if this low holds, then it should attempt to rise higher in the near term. And if at all this resistance level breaks on the downside, then 61.8% retracement of the entire rise, which is say somewhere around this 25,250 mark, that will be like an ultimate support level for the Nifty index. I think the structure will become weak if at all 25,250 levels is broken decisively on the downside. So this is something that you need to keep in mind. The other positive what has happened is that this week we so if you all remember, we had spoken about this that whenever the 40 days broken, I mean 40 week is broken on the downside, if at all it has to be a false breakdown, then it should come back quickly, right? Say something like this, 2-3 weeks of down move, but it came back swiftly, and from there we had seen an up move. So can this be the turnaround point? We need to see. I think the ultimate confirmation over here also will be when you end up seeing a bullish crossover on weekly RMI, but closing around the 20 week, in fact marginally above the 20 week, is a good sign. So we need to see, in the coming week, do we see a follow up buying or no? And like I told you, I mean, this month is kind of a make or break sort of level, make or break month. Why? Because this month we tested the 20-month average, and so far it has bounced back from there. Okay, so now whether this 20-month holds or no, I mean, these are all things that we'll discover during the month. But again, if we end up seeing a positive monthly close, then it would be a good sign, making the low of this month an important swing low for the coming days and weeks. Okay, and just to give you a context, I think while Nifty index has turned around from here, Nifty 500 and the other indices actually tested this support zone, and from there it turned around. So if you see the mid cap index, again it nearly tested this support zone and turned around. Okay, Nifty 500, and this was the level actually that we were talking about when the Nifty index was over here and it was starting to correct. Okay, that can it test those levels? I mean, those levels have actually now been tested, and the cycles are also complete. So we need to see how the setup unfolds. That is also because if you see the FI's positioning, they have been covering their position in the past few days. Now this trend has to accelerate And I think once it does, that's where you will end up getting this follow buying also in the Nifty index. But don't forget that from a medium term perspective, it needs to break out from this sort of this cup and handle pattern or whatever you call it that it's forming, right? Because the Nifty index has seen multiple highs around this 26,300 levels, and that needs to be decisively broken on the upside for us to get any meaningful signal. Until then, it is likely to just hover within this large range that it has formed in past many weeks or so. Okay, but if we see the FI positioning and so on, I think there is a meaningful correct. I mean, unwinding that we have seen recently. Even the FI's positioning. Okay, I did not notice this, but yesterday they have seen some shorting. So wait, let me just quickly see where, in which instrument have they shorted, because in derivatives they have actually covered their position. Okay, so apart from derivative, everywhere else they have shorted. So they have actually sold calls a bit, and they have bought puts. So that is what yesterday's data is showing. So on net basis, they have increased their short positions a bit, but nevertheless, the point that I'm trying to make is that these are still at a very extreme levels. So keep watching the trend, what happens over here, whether they unwind or no. And I think unwinding of their short position is what the trigger will be for the coming days and weeks. So need to see. And on the downside, like I mentioned, 25 250, which is the 61.8% retracement of this entire rise, that we have seen. Sorry for the. So this I'm talking of the Nifty index. So this 61.8% retracement of this entire move that we have seen, that is a very, very important support level on the downside. And as long as the Nifty is trading above that, at least we can say that the short-term trend is bullish. Okay. So that's there. And the other thing is that even sentiment indicators, we need to see how it behaves, because daily swing had seen some correction yesterday, but now again it has seen an up move. And typically what happens is that if at all it has to move if it wants to move higher, then it will do something like this. Initially in this up move it will get overbought, then we'll see some pullback, and then if it moves higher, and ultimately what you will see is that there will be a divergence that will form. And then from this divergence, whenever the breakdown happens, that leads to a correction. So this is a typical behavior of swing. So that's where once you are with the trend, trailing it with the averages makes a lot more sense. So which means that if we have seen a turnaround in the Nifty index, and in case if you have a bullish position, so ideally 20-40 averages works very well. So you can see over here that 40 has acted as a support, and from there it is kind of trying to turn around. I think that might be the case with other indices as well. If you see Bank Nifty, similar thing. Small cap, mid cap also similar thing. 500 might also be similar thing, and so on, right? So broadly, as of now it looks okay, and it seems like the correction has happened, and from there it is trying to now turn around. Need to see in Mondays and Tuesdays trading session whether we see those follow-up gains or no. But like I said, I mean, broadly it looks okay. One thing where there is a bit of a concern, and I think that is IT, because after this selling there has been 2-3 days of again follow-up selling, which is again not a good sign, and it is on the verge of breaking this trend line. So all this is happening after it broke out from the range but could not sustain. And from there we are seeing the Nifty IT breaking down. Just give me a minute. Huh? Sorry, I had got a call from the team. So yeah. Anyways, see, and also I have told you in the past why these patterns are important is because if there is a false breakout and it goes down, it is never a good sign. Something like this had happened in FMCG also, and I think over at that point I was thinking that eventually FMCG will go up, but then it fell down. So always be careful of such patterns. Something similar is happening with IT, and there is a trigger also over here. So there is a risk that it can fall down. And in this phase, I think what is actually happening is that there is a lot of rotation that is happening. You can see that despite Nifty index falling so much, Nifty IT index falling so much, Nifty more or less has held up. That is because other indices have lent that support to the market. Okay, so like I had told yesterday also, and I've been telling for few days, take each stocks or index at the face value and try to analyze them on standalone basis, because we are seeing a lot of divergent moves at this point of time. Okay, so I think that is what broadly I wanted to communicate. I think if you all have more questions, I can try and address them, because I think more or less things remain the same, of what we have talked so far in the past 2 3 days. So Narsimha Murthy, good to see you. I want to understand FI net index position on 2nd Jan. It is minus 2 lakh 18 when Nifty is on 1st Feb, when it swing low. On 1st Feb, when it swing low, it is minus 88. Yeah, so exactly, Narsimha Murthy. Basically, they have shorted big time. Okay, and just to give you a context, I think on budget day itself, they had done a lot of call shorting. So the good part is that you can always see those data. So I remember, because I had seen that data and I was completely surprised. So if you see the options activity of FIs, so you can see firstly over here that there was almost 1,25,000 call short on the budget day. Okay, this is on the budget day alone, and you can see over here that after this, just the call short had happened so much, and even put, they were buying significantly. In fact, on 1st of Feb, if I'm not wrong, they also bought a lot of put. In fact, they did buy yesterday also, but it was almost around say 60,000 contracts net. That they bought put. So because of that, and because of this steady formation of short positions, their position actually reached this 8 lakh 80, whatever, 8 lakh uh, 87,000 contracts, which by the way has never ever happened in the history. So need to see how things unfold, but broadly I would imagine that these are all short positions that have been built. So need to see how they cover and how they take this position forward. If it indicates shorts, the swing high should have more shorts, which is not the case. Could you help me understand? So, uh, Narsimha ji, basically, this rate, that we are talking about, okay, was actually more for first 5 minutes or so. So largely the trade has not taken place at this point, right? I mean, most of the trades have actually been taken around 25,800 and so on. And maybe I would think that they have been shorting continuously, so they are sort of not afraid at this point of time. But there will be some point where the FIs might be forced to cover the short position, and I would tend to imagine that rate might end up being the all time high of 25 of 26,300, because that's where then, typically technically also what happens is that if the chart goes into uncharted territory, or if the index goes into uncharted territory, then you practically have no level on the upside to look out for, right? And that's where typically, I mean, and psychologically also the panic starts kicking in. Think of it this way, that if you are short on say some stock, and it has broken a new all-time high, then you will be shit scared, right? I mean, you don't know what can be the upside level. So I think, so that is why I was saying that, the trigger point is either the breakout from this range or a breakdown from this important support zone. I think that's where we might end up getting trending move, else it might just end up whipsawing. And that is how I'm thinking at this point of time. And see, this can be totally different angle. But what if they are, say, short on India and long on Korea or something like that? Maybe if they are into that trade, then I don't know. I mean, when will that reverse? I mean, will it even reverse over here? Because if, I mean, this is just an hypothetical example that I'm giving, that if they have gone long on, say, Korean market, and they have shorted Indian market, then they might continue to hold the short position as long as Korean market is outperforming, right? But in general, I would tend to think that, usually this all-time highs, whenever they get broken on the upside, and that too after multiple attempts, right? Then, and plus the positioning being bearish, then I would expect that there should be some significant move on the upside. And and it is also very important to see the data, what is happening when that breakout happens. I mean, how are they positioned and so on. That will help us to get a lot of clue as to how they are thinking and how they are positioned. And at that point of time, when we start analyzing other index, what they are doing, are there any triggers for those index or so on. So I think that's how we'll take it forward. But that is what my understanding is at this point of time. I hope that answers your question. So, Salasar Enterprises, actually, I don't give much importance to prop, because prop ka positionings are usually hedged. I mean, they will buy long, they will sell shorts, and it is basically delta hedging and all those things. So that's why, I personally don't give much importance to the prop trading positioning. That is just how I look at it. Akhil says, is there a uh, head and shoulders pattern in Nifty IT index? Head and shoulders pattern. Let me check. I mean, this is a head and shoulder pattern, but for that, Nifty IT has to fall to 30,000 and break 30,000. Then you will call it a head and shoulders pattern. Not at this point of time. At this point of time, it is basically at an important rising trend line support. So if that breaks, then it will be negative in the short term. Any other questions you all have? I've tried to address all the questions which were there in the chat box. Okay. I think people are in weekend mode today. and more or less this week has also been good. After a painful few weeks, so maybe people might be celebrating that. So I think that's it from my side. Then, since I'm not seeing any questions, we'll wind up the session for today, and let's catch up on Monday and see how things unfold. So once again, thanks a lot for joining, and see y'all on Monday at 5 p.m.